everyone, my name is Candace McClung, and today we are going to be talking about Human Resource Management in AX 2012 R2. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Okay, so today's objectives, we're going to talk a little bit about the changes in the HR module from 2009 to 2012 R2. And then we're going to talk a little bit about how those enhancements give you flexibility to your recruitment and hiring managers. And then we're actually going to follow an applicant through the recruitment and hiring process in AX. So just as some background, some common pain points that we see for recruiters and HR managers. Recruiters often have a hard time finding multiple application resources and being able to narrow down where the most hires are coming from within those sources. Managing the application process, so seeing an applicant through to hire, is often a tedious process that is a lot of back and forth, and it's sometimes hard to keep up with. And then handling unsolicited applications, so people who just want to work for the company, but there may or may not be a position available, or they don't really know, or you don't know what the position that would be best for them is. So those are all three pain points for recruiters. And then some pain points we see for HR managers is gathering information to make the decisions for hiring, or benefit information or compensation information. Managing change within the organization, and actually maintaining information about the workers. And all 6 of these pain points are, taken care of in R2 in the HR module, and we're going to talk about just a few of them today. So first, we're going to jump right into the actual environment, and we're going to see a first demonstration of the actual recruitment process. We're going to do this through what's called a recruitment project in AX. So we'll actually see that project. We'll see the applications that have been submitted for it, either through Enterprise Portal or manually entered. And then we'll actually go over and do some skill mapping to see where the fits and gaps are between the applicants and the applications. So that's all the data that's involved, and we'll go through the steps of gathering applicants using the recruitment project, searching the candidate pool, screening existing applicants, and then we'll actually narrow down the search. So with that, let's head over to AX. So here I am in the HR module, the area page in AX. You'll see up here in the common area, we have workers, employees, and contractors. Users in your organization are going to be workers, and then either an employee of the company or a contractor, depending on how you set them up. So employees and contractors are both types of workers. So you can come in here and do pretty much any action that you want to for a worker and see any information about them that you would want to see. Now in 2009, virtual companies were used to share the employee tables. But in 2012, the worker table and all of its supplementary tables are shared, so they're accessible from any company. So these are all shared tables in 2012, which is nice. So let's go ahead and go over to the recruitment project. So this is pretty much going to be a recruiter's best friend when it comes to managing the entire process. So recruitment projects can be used for anything from maybe a job fair that you attend to hire a mass group of workers. They can be used for individuals for required positions. Maybe you just need to hire one person for a vacant position. And they can also be used for unsolicited applications, as I mentioned earlier. So maybe just someone who applies who just generally wants to work at the company. So I'm going to go ahead and drill into this particular project, staff accountant. This is the one we're going to be dealing with today. So from the recruitment project form, We can view related information, like the job being recruited for, applicants, and applications. So you can see here, we can actually, this is a hyperlink, so we can actually click it and it'll take us straight to the job form, which we'll see in a second. Over here in this fact box under application details, we can actually see in which status each of the applications are in, and select based on that. So we're going to just choose all for the time being. And then you can actually see the applications and drill in to see each particular applicant. So if I want to drill into this application for Charlene, here we are in the application form, which we got to through the recruitment project form. And like I was saying, you can see details about the applicant here. I can drill into her, this is actually just her party record, but I can go up to application details and actually drill into her particular information. But before we do that, let's go back over to the recruitment project form. There are a couple things that are pretty important here. So we have an open date, an application deadline, and a close date. And we have to have all three of these dates in place for the recruitment project if you want to be able to publish the job on your enterprise portal, which is going to be this checkbox right here. So if we have this selected, we should be able to publish the job posting, but we can only do that if we have all three of these. The application deadline tells enterprise portal when to allow people to apply up until. Pretty intuitive there. And then the close date, the posting will not be present on enterprise portal once the close date has passed. So those are some things to keep in mind. Also, a requirement for being able to post onto enterprise portal is to have a job ad. So here you can come into this window and be able to see, and you can actually edit from this window and type whatever you need to be presented on that posting on your enterprise portal. Okay. Also, another pretty useful tool is adding media to your recruitment projects. Here's where you will add any sort of source that you're advertising or visiting, any way that you're getting applications. You can add here, and then on the individual applications you'll mark what particular media was used. And this we'll be able to drill in through an inquiry and see where we're getting the most hires from and those kinds of things once you have this set up. Let's see. Okay, so once a recruitment project is first created, you actually have to come in and tell it to start, which obviously this one is already started, and that's what's going to go ahead and initiate the process of getting it on enterprise portal and allowing people to apply for it so long as the open date has passed and the close date has not passed. Now we're actually going to go back to the application, one of the applications. Okay, so like I mentioned earlier, we can jump straight to the applicant detail form from the application and be able to see details around this applicant, anything that she's entered or that you've gotten and you've entered into the system. So a good place here to go is the skills. So you can come in here and see exactly what skills this person has and what level based on the parameters that you originally set up. And over here you can actually see that she's in the interview status of the process. So once applicants come over, it's usually helpful to add them when you're adding their contact information. It's sometimes helpful to add a different address book for applicants, because this way you don't have applicants mixed in with your vendors and customers and everybody in your organization already. So just as a side note, it's sometimes useful, just a matter of preference, to have a separate global address book for applicants. Okay, so also on this form, you'll notice these two fields, future consideration and previous employee. These are two new fields in 2012, and they're going to be used. Maybe you don't want to hire this person right now, but you like them. It wasn't because of them. It was kind of more of a matching issue. So you could put them in as a future consideration, and they'll be pulled in to other application or to other recruitment projects based on their skills. And then also you can mark to say whether this was a previous employee of your company or not, because that's usually pretty important information when you're recruiting people for jobs. So another area that's important in the recruitment process is the application basket. This is a useful tool because it shows your recruiter anything that's come in through your enterprise portal. So these are applications that have come in for a recruitment project through the portal. You can also manually enter them in here if they need to be approved. But basically, they're going to sit in this basket until someone comes in and approves them to actually go through the process. So if you have maybe a pre-screening process before you even consider candidates for an interview, you would put them in the application basket, and then once they were approved or pre-screened or whatever your process is, you would actually approve them, and then they would start the process of going through the actual recruitment. Now, these can either come in through recruitment projects or an unsolicited project, again, so it doesn't have to be through a particular project. And then you can actually come in and maybe you've attached a cover letter for this person, or another document, maybe a resume if you haven't attached it to the applicant yet. Those can all be housed here. And this basically just allows you to come in and sift through and be able to see what exactly they're applying for. So I'm actually going to go ahead and approve one of these, and we can see that it's actually just transferred over. And again, here is where you would maybe want to have that applicant global address book so it doesn't get mixed in with others. Notice it's not. Emily Brown is not in the application basket anymore, and if we go over to applicants, we should see her there. Here she is. So she's now officially an applicant. She was approved. So if an applicant applies for multiple recruitment projects or just sends multiple applications in general, AX is nice in that it will assign only one application ID to that person, and then assign each of the multiple recruitment projects, assign that application ID to multiple recruitment projects, so there's no duplicates of the actual applicant in the application table. So you don't really have to worry about that, worrying about two different people have the same name. You would know they were two separate people. Let's see. So if we jump back to the recruitment projects, so like I said, over here we can see all of the applications that have been submitted for this particular project and actually drill into them. So we're going to go and actually decide on a person to hire. So like I said earlier, Charlene is our applicant and I guess question. So I just actually want to go look at her skills, which we've already kind of seen. So I see she has accounting, and I think this is level of, so she just has accounting education. Let's actually go see what her education is. So she doesn't have any entered, but maybe she has a bachelor's and business administration. So we can add that here. So now we have her marked as having that credential. So in order to narrow down your applicants, you can do it one of two ways. You can narrow down manually by actually going to the recruitment project and then drilling into the job. Now your job form is going to show you the skills that are required and certificates that are required for this particular job. So I could manually go look at Charlene's skills, look at these skills, match them up that way. Or AX has a very nice skill mapping feature using profiles that will do all that legwork for us. So I can come into the skill mapping profiles and select staff accountant. Here you can select to include whether you want workers, which are obviously people who are already registered as workers in your system, so those are going to be employees and contractors. Applicants, which is people who have applied for the job. Or contacts, which is going to be your vendors and customers. So maybe you're recruiting for some sort of course training and one of your customers offers that kind of training and you want to hire them on as that. This would be a good place to see if any of your customers actually have that ability. So here we can actually select a range for how close or far we want the person to be located, their seniority, which department if you're looking for existing workers, or we can give them an age range. And then we can also mark this as optional and set it as with an importance, which I'm going to show you on a different one. We can also set up certificates. So here I've marked that to be a staff accountant, we want to see people with a CPA license, but it is optional. Based on the job ad, they just have to be in pursuit of it. So skills that are necessary, I put them at a pretty low level because they can always move up, and we're really looking for level entry people here. So we marked them all optional. And then education, we'd like for them to have education of accounting, which is optional because we'll take equivalents as long as they have, I guess business administration should maybe not be optional. So we don't really want anyone who doesn't have a business degree, right? Okay, so once we have it all filled out, and you can change these each time you come into it. This is not set. We're going to go ahead and execute. And the skill mapping returns 6 individuals. So it did a really good job of actually narrowing that down for us. So then we're going to come into result. And I like to look at the report. The report's going to list your applicants in order from most relevant to least relevant. And it's actually going to tell you what the target level is of whatever the skill is and the level of the applicant or worker, depending on what your selections were. And then for each of the other parameters, it'll give you kind of a matchup there. So, and then a match percent at the top. So the highest one we got here is a 14.29 in our applicant pool. And it does that for each applicant that applies to the parameters. Another way to look at your results is to actually come to the results screen. Now this screen's nice because you can actually click on any of the people that come up in here and see details of them. So you can actually go straight to their applicant detail form from the results screen if you want to look at them closer, anything like that. So sometimes it'll give us a nice graphic report, but not this one. And also, of course, you're going to do this based on a date. So this is going to be people who have applied to this current recruitment project based on the dates that we set earlier. Okay, so based on what we found, I think we'll stick with Charlene as our applicant of choice for today. And let's actually talk a little bit about demonstration 2. So in this demonstration, we're actually going to hire our applicant, Charlene, from the recruitment project. We'll send her some correspondence. So we'll send her an email telling her that we want to interview her, schedule her interview, and we'll decide during that interview, we really like Charlene, we're going to bring her on board. So then we will actually transition her from an applicant straight to an employee with the click of a button. And then we can see where you would actually assign compensation and benefits and other information about her in her employee record. So if we go back over to AX, right, we're going to go back into our recruitment project for staff accountant, open it up, and let's go over to our applications and grab the one for Charlene. All right, so the first thing we need to do here is change the correspondence action. Now what the correspondence action does, it pretty much controls what type of communication you have with the applicant. So once I change, or it's already been changed to interview, it wasn't a receive status. So once we change it to interview, we can actually come up here to create email. And the email template that we can use, the only one that's giving us the option for is interview, because that's the stage in the application process that or in the recruitment process that she's at. And but before we can do that, we actually have to go schedule an interview for her. So we're going to come up to applicant interviews. We know that yes, it indeed is for the staff accountant recruitment project. And let's choose and interview her for her. We'll have Jody interview her. And we'll ask her if she can come in this Friday. Give it a time. If we had locations, you can also, well actually we'll go ahead and type this in. We'll just say corporate office here. So now we've changed our correspondence action to interview. We've actually scheduled her interview in AX. Now we just have to let her know that we want her to come in for an interview. And there's our scheduled interview. So let's create the email template for it. So AX it goes ahead and puts all the information in the email template for you based on the parameters that we chose when we actually scheduled the interview. So then we would send that off to her. She would say, yes, I'd love to come interview with you. And we've updated her record to show that we actually emailed her that invitation. So there are other options for communicating with the applicant beyond the interview. So if I change her correspondence action to rejection, we can come create a rejection letter for her. If I've changed it to offer, we can send her an offer letter. And you can see how this is this correspondence action is controlling what my options are there. So let's actually go and hire our applicant. So here we're just in the interview stage, back to where we were, and on our application status, we're going to come down to hire new worker, and we want her to be an employee, and here's where you would choose if you wanted them to be an employee or a contractor. Obviously, in our earlier example, if you're hiring maybe a customer or a vendor to come in and do some training, that would be an instance in which you would put them as a contractor, unless, of course, you're hiring them for your company. All right, so the position that's available for this recruitment project is accountant, and so we're going to start her assignment July 10th, and then all we have to do is say hire. And AX automatically takes us to Charlene's worker record. So she's now a worker in AX. We didn't have to retype anything. Everything just moved straight over to the worker table as we had it typed in her applicant form. So now is where you would actually come in and change things about her, such as her information, her compensation, payroll, anything of that nature. It's all going to be done on her worker record. And we'll come back to this in just 1 minute. There are a lot of things in AX that have the ability to be controlled through Enterprise Portal, maybe through the customer self-service portal, the vendor self-service, or just giving your employees the ability to change maybe their benefits online, things like that. Those all require a user relation within AX. So your worker or employee or even contractor, if you want them to, just has to have a user relation to be able to do that. So we're actually going to come in and create a new user request. So this is basically just going to connect the Active Directory user with the worker. And usually there's a workflow associated with this. So maybe the recruiter actually comes in and enters the user request, and the HR manager is the person who approves it. So I want to choose Charlene. There she is. It pulled in her email automatically. We want to assign her to an employee user role. And we'll authenticate her through the Active Directory, which assigns her alias. And then once we refresh, we get this notification letting us know that there is indeed a workflow. So it's been submitted. And then the manager would just come in here and be able to actually approve her user request. So that would give Charlene the ability to actually go in and change things on the Enterprise Portal. Okay, so let's go back over to Charlene's worker record. So now that she's actually an employee, we can come in and give her a title. These titles are predefined, but they're user defined, so you can create more if you would like. We also should give her an office location. We'll say she's located in Atlanta. And now we can add her to an actual address book. Let's give her all of them except for applicants. Her employment information is just going to be basic information about her, position at the company, so when she started, if she's terminated, that date, why she got terminated. If it's a probation period, we can define that here. And actually, let's just jump straight down to compensation. So we can actually come in and assign different types of plans for her and control her commission here. And then this is also kind of a sort of a report card for this worker as well. So we can come in and figure out what exactly, what competencies she has, what she's lacking, what she's working on, her development plans, and things like that. So this is really where you're going to maintain all of your workers' information. So as a recap, we talked briefly about the changes that occurred in the in 2012 R2 for AX and the HR module. We kind of looked at the recruit to hire process, kind of the workflows that are involved, the positions involved in your organization. We looked at skills mapping for internal and external applicants, and the applicant to employee transition. So with that, that's all I have for today. I hope it gave you a little bit better understanding of the initial phases of the HR module. And if you find that you do have questions, feel free to email us, and we'll get back to you. Other than that, thank you so much for joining today, and I hope everyone has a wonderful rest of the day.